is is empathy the answer? So I did a previous live stream of this, a video of this, just about half an hour ago, but there was a glitch in the system. And it's interesting how that can sometimes happen with the internet. So I'm doing this one, and the smoothness of the delivery to you, I'm crossing my fingers. So I have hope for that being a good delivery. All right, so here we go. So, talking about, is empathy the answer? Well, I would think that empathy is definitely the answer right now. And it is definitely the answer for every aspect of our lives. So, you see, as a mindfulness trainer and healing practitioner, loving empathy is at the core of my teachings. Now, there are different ways to teach that, and I have my own personal way of doing that. So in this, I'm just gonna tap in on just a um, basic for us to consider. Now, this topic, empathy, is not new. In fact, I did a previous video on that, and I've been doing what I've been doing for 20 years now, teaching people about different ways in which to live their lives, how to work with each other, how to create community together, how to create community with themselves, because it begins with each and every one of us, how we are in cohesiveness with ourselves, how much of our natural selves we're actually living as opposed to hiding. And of course, this is about the healthiness of showing ourselves, not the side that, tends to create havoc and chaos and more misery in one's life. No, that side is part of the learning curve. But yeah, it's all about empathy, isn't it? Here's why I think this. There's a glitch, I think, in how we define empathy for ourselves, how we practice it specifically. And we sometimes alienate others and judge them mercilessly or endlessly, which is the opposite of empathy. Now, through empathy, we have the power to connect with each and every person that we meet at different levels. Depending on how much you want to interact with that person, we can go deeper into our interactions with them. So, depending on the level that is deeper than our attitudes and beliefs, finding that sweet spot, so to speak, of how to connect with people beyond what we think we know already about ourselves, beyond what we've grown accustomed to in our family interactions, our community, our tribe, so to speak, right? So there's a fear of what is different, and then to create division to keep that at bay can sometimes be the goal, whether knowingly or unknowingly, of an individual or group scenario. So of course, when I've worked with different individuals across the years, almost 2 decades now, um, it's really interesting to see how each group handles that for themselves, right? And there's a lot of positives to be gained, and also some stuff to learn, right? But barriers such as labels and gossiping are two of the ways in which we as human beings um, keep ourselves separate from actually sharing and being empathetical towards someone or something that is different or outside of what we view as normal, or what we view as non-threatening. Because a lot of the times, not showing empathy towards someone is about actually being afraid of that, or feeling there's a threat lurking in front of us. So there's a whole detailed information that can happen around that, but I'm just going to touch on that. So these barriers are when empathy is not in play, right? Not actually showing up in that interaction. So when we truly listen to other people, those of those, of course, in our families, in our friendships, in our communities, in our work environment. When we truly listen, we see the other person, their humanity beyond our previous preconceptions of them, because it's about the preconception, the judgments that tends to hinder sometimes. Because we can have a sense of intuition about someone. We can intuit, oh, okay, I think I can, yeah, this person seems like this, or oh, I don't know about that person. However, if there's no immediate danger, it would behoove us to then outstretch that hand and put aside judgment for the time being, keeping it in the side view, of course, if it is something that is truly, questionable, and just become a little bit more curious. I may touch on that a little bit later if there's time. So when we have power struggles in groups, that's a sign of a lack of empathy, because both parties are not willing to understand the other. Now, when we have hierarchy as well, there's this whole thing, and it doesn't have to be in a work environment. It can be just in a general interaction. It could be with friends, with loved ones. There's this hierarchy that tends to separate people into categories, that leaves each of those areas wanting, depending on where you are on that ladder of hierarchy. Now, good leaders, whether it be in a family, a community, or work environment, good leaders know how to show empathy. They don't see empathy as a weakness. And so we can all learn from that. We can all fall off that train of empathy givers, because we're not quite nurturing the seed inside of us that we all have, which is to show empathy. And that connectivity can really create a beautiful relationship if we give it the opportunity to do so. So having power over people, for instance, when it's unhealthy, can be a real detriment to a loving relationship, a caring relationship, a growth worthy relationship. It can really stop it in its tracks. When there's no empathy, one can touch on it again, but if it does not come naturally, or if it does not come genuinely into the interaction, empathy then can be used as a tool that works against true connectivity, when it's a false approach to pretending to be empathetical, right? So that's the false face of empathy, when it's not a genuine empathy, right? Practice, or a genuine show of empathy towards that person. So there are just two human beings willing to listen to each other heart to heart, ideally in any one-to-one interaction. And groups, likewise, within each group, there's an individual. So judgment can really put a kibosh in that sense of moving forward in a project, moving forward in a family, moving forward in any type of connectivity that you hope to grow, but then one or more parties don't really see the value of being empathetical or understanding from the other person's perspective. So it's about loving someone despite all the differences that they may show. They may act differently, they may look differently. And if you're afraid of that, and if you prejudge that, then you're going to think that person's a threat to whatever you want to hold on to, right? So sometimes empathy can bring out the, signs of empathy can bring out the complete best in a person. But if that person is using empathy in that moment as a tool to get what they truly desire, which is, let's say, a power position, then that's not really empathy. That's something else altogether. And I have a name for that, and that's in another video. So it's important to acknowledge and embrace the differences that we all have as individual human beings, and to show empathy regardless of those differences is a beautiful thing. And it's really an evolved way of looking at things. Now we're gonna all struggle again with that because we're all learning on this walk right through life. So understand that it'll test you greatly to truly practice what empathy is. If we practice empathy, then we can connect through acknowledging our common human needs. It brings it down to that simplicity. Our common human needs, our feelings and our fears, and knowing that we each bleed the same way, right? So understanding that no matter what that person may be showing that is different from you, and you're thinking, wow, that's odd, I just wouldn't do it that way. Okay, if it's something that you don't understand, try and understand what that is first. Be curious, because empathy is about being curious about what the other person has to offer as themselves. It's not about you or I going in there and thinking, okay, what can I get if I show this? And what can I get if I show that? Yeah, it can be manipulated. Signs of empathy, but is it really empathy when it's a manipulation, right? So it's an opportunity to connect. I can't stress that enough. And it has to be genuine for it to be truly long lasting. If it's not genuine, then it won't last. Empathy won't last if it's not a genuine act of empathy. So if you, again, fall to the side of that empathy path, understanding where someone else is coming from, accepting other people, their differences, their actions, etc., their thoughts, their ideas, etc., as different from yours, instead of alienating them, embrace that. But if you do find yourself alienating someone, and you think it's the right way to be, and or if you find yourself alienating someone because they're quote unquote different, ask yourself why that is. And that's when you ask yourself, you start to forgive yourself for being a little harsh on that person or a little harsh on that group or too judgmental about something or other about that individual. Ask yourself why you do that and where that comes from. That's the beginning of you starting to forgive yourself, ideally. Now, we all fall short again, right, in understanding each other in full. The importance here and the key is to stay curious about what it is that you fear about that interaction. What is it that you fear about that experience? What is it that you fear within that group that makes you create that um, it can kind of be rather devastating to the whole group if there's that imbalance of trust, empathy, etc. going on. It really, really, really can create havoc, and you don't want that. But that in itself is a learning curve too, if you're brave enough to look at why that is and be honest with yourself, right? So the objectivity here is to learn from that, dig deep, and stop projecting one's fears onto the other, right? And again, we all do that in little ways along our path to learning more about what makes us tick. And I think it's just a really beautiful thing if we can look at that and think, okay, what is it that stops growth from happening? What is it that stops me from fill in the blanks? What that means for you, right? All right, I think that's the gist of what I want to say. And I think it's never more crucial now to practice empathy in our lives. And I know we've all been doing it all this year with everything that's been going on in the world in different ways. But if you want to go deeper, there's a way to do it. And that's something that I teach. So once again, thanks for coming out. And if you're interested in booking a session with me, of course, you can message me or email me. Let me know what your questions are. And I do give consultations online and also by phone. So give me a shout if indeed you want to work with me and connect. All right? Okay, I think that's the end of my talk with you. I hope this has been very helpful, and let me know if there's something you want me to clarify in this. By all means, I'm open to hearing if you have any additional questions. All right? So I'll talk to you soon. Enjoy your day. Namaste.